Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey, Seattle Kraken podcast. We've got a really fun, way too early episode for this one, RJ. And really already, this is one in which there might be some debate going on between you and I. Already we've got, some controversy between us. A little bit of a disagreement, an argument going on here. Was going to talk about the hurricane and living through all that yesterday, but no. That was all boring stuff. This is legitimate, okay, everybody? Help us settle this right now. So RJ, as we all know, is a big Excel spreadsheets guy. Everything, all of his podcast notes every week, he's all reading it off of Excel. When you see him squinting at a screen reading something, he's reading off of Excel. Just like that, yes. He's probably got some live transcription, and that's what he's reading right now. I basically never use Excel. I never did growing up. I still basically don't. And so now when we went to do a thing for later, which I'll get to, I opened up Google Sheets because it's the same thing, RJ.
It's a cheap Excel clone. It doesn't work the same. It's not as intuitive. I don't like it.
It looks exactly the same to me. Nothing is different. I don't understand. I have both of them on my laptop. I'm looking at them. It's basically
if you use
the same.
it enough, you will notice the differences. I mean, the first one right here is that when you hit enter, it doesn't just take you to the next one below it, right? The next cell below it. It just goes into the cell like it's about to start typing. No, I don't want that.
Yeah, but then you hit enter again and it goes down to the one below it.
I don't want to hit enter twice as many times.
You double tap, RJ. Did you not watch Zombieland?
I have seen Zombieland. Yeah, no, I know always double tap, but no, you shouldn't have to double tap here. One of many differences. I don't know. I prefer Excel. Everyone tell me I'm right.
I'd argue that's more functional because then you can actually type in the cell. Why would you want to go and double click to type in the cell?
If you start typing, it will just start typing in the cell.
The point is, Sheets is exactly the same, only it's got cloud storage, so you can access it anywhere. That was really handy in school the few times I needed to use it. Just log in at the school computer or whatever. Here we go. Log out. You're done. I don't know. All right. Tell me I'm wrong, everybody, because I'm sure we've got people listening that very much agree with you, RJ. Because people have jobs and have to use this stuff, and I'm sure that does make a difference.
Yeah, I don't have time to litigate this for an hour, but everyone let Dylan know that he's wrong. Excel is the best.
All right. That's probably a good idea also. The Seattle-based company, we should be defaulting to Microsoft and not Google.
There you go. Dylan.
Well, somebody we don't need to worry about that with is Queen Anne Beer Hall, a sponsor of this podcast, RJ, because we are all in agreement that Queen Anne Beer Hall is the best place outside of Climate Pledge Arena to go watch a Kraken game, get one of the big pretzels, do all that fun stuff there, have the music, have the big goal horn whenever the Kraken score, all that good stuff. TV in every direction, so you don't have to worry about it. You can ignore the person you're there with to watch the game, regardless of where you're sitting. It's great.
It really is. So much better than the Google has cloud storage beer hall, huh, Dylan?
Yeah, exactly. So today we're continuing this month's trend of way too early because it's August and there is nothing really going on hockey-wise. And we have an exciting one. It's really kind of the first part of a two-parter to finish out August here. And so this week, for way too early, what we are going to do is go game by game through the entire 2023-2024 Kraken's 82-game regular season schedule, and we are going to pick if we think they are going to win, lose, or lose in overtime and collect that wonderful Gary Bettman loser point, RJ. We're going to go game by game, and we're going to pick and see what we think the Kraken's season is going to look like. Pretty straightforward.
Exactly. When I came up with this idea a couple weeks ago, we were meeting in person. We're like, all right, what are we going to do for these way too earlys? I'm like, what if, Dylan, we just go through every single game on the schedule, vibes only, and just say what we think is going to happen. Don't even think about it ahead of time. We haven't even really checked the schedule. We know the first game's in Vegas. We know the home opener, but we haven't really checked that deep down the schedule. Just kind of let it play out as it does. And so, yeah, I think we're going to give that a try this week.
All right, so we're going every game, vibes only. Let's do this. I guess we should just dive right in, right, RJ? I mean, you did the math. We need to spend not a lot of time on each of these.
Exactly. I did the quick math here. I gave ourselves maybe 6 minutes or so for an intro, right? Because that's what usually happens.
Yep.
And at that point, on our usual hour podcast, like we're 54 minutes left, 82 games. So that gives us about 39.51 seconds per game. So we're gonna have to do this pretty quickly, keep up a pretty good pace,
Yep.
talk about what we think is gonna happen. But yeah, let's get going because I think we're down to probably 38 seconds or so. The more I talk,
Oh
the less
no.
time we have per
Oh
game.
no. It's crazy to me that we've never seen anybody else do this before, RJ, and there's probably a good reason for that, but we'll find out. All right, October 10th, opening night in Vegas, taking on the Golden Knights for their banner raising. RJ, what do you think's going to happen?
I think the Kraken are actually going to win this one. I think Vegas is going to be too hungover from winning the cup. We've seen this happen time and time again. I remember the Sharks playing the Kings after the Kings reverse sweep and Stanley Cup win, and the Sharks had a big win there. Generally, those teams, first game back, banner night, I don't know, the more times I can think about it, they tend to lose.
I think for most teams that would be the case. Vegas is the perfect villain team, so that's not what will happen. They are the villain team. They will find a way to win. That, let's be honest, that's going to be the healthiest the Golden Knights are all season long. So if there is ever one game to say that the Golden Knights will win, it's the one game everybody's going to be healthy for them. So I think game one, I don't want it to be the case, but I do think that the season is going to start off with a regulation loss there. Then the Kraken go on the road to Nashville on the 12th, RJ. This one, complete opposite. Against this Nashville team, Kraken win this game.
All right, we're in agreement for this game. Yeah, I think the Kraken win this one. Nashville, I don't know, they were on the playoff bubble last year, but yeah, I think they've kind of taken a downhill trajectory this offseason. I do think UC Saros will keep him in the game. I think he makes 40 saves. Kraken win 3-1 though, and Jeremy Lauzon does something funny.
Yeah, the only thing would be, Kamel gets his first career hat trick for the Nashville Preds. That could be the only thing that could sink this boat, but I don't think he'd do that to me. Next, on the road to St. Louis, RJ, to kick off, to finish off this 3-game road trip to start the season. St. Louis is a team that they sold off a lot last year. They didn't really add some of those pieces back. I'm not too worried about St. Louis. I think this is another dub for the boys.
I don't know. I'm kind of feeling a loss here. I think, especially if Kraken go 2-0 to start the season, I think at some point something has to give. The Blues are going to be in prove-it mode after how bad last season went. I think I could see them rattling off 5 or 6 straight wins to start the season. Just one of those things you don't really see coming. And I think the Kraken might be a victim of it here.
Oh, interesting. I disagree. After that, Kraken have a couple days off before the home opener against the Colorado Avalanche on October 17th, RJ. Cale Makar coming back in the CPA, RJ. What's this Avs team going to look like? I don't know. What do you think's going to happen?
I mean, I can't wait to be there, first of all. Hear the rain of booze that I'm sure will be showered upon Cale Makar. But you know what? I'm going to go with my same kind of theory with the cup hangover with the Vegas game. I think the Avs are going to have something to prove. The Kraken beat them in a pivotal playoff series, that went 7 games. I think Colorado is going to be motivated, and I think they will just edge this game out. It's going to be close. I'll give it overtime. So I'll do the first overtime loss for the Kraken, but I think the Avs take it.
That is interesting. I was kind of leaning that way, but then I thought, you know what? I think unlike with the Vegas game where the Kraken aren't going to be able to overcome Vegas for that overall season opener, I think they're going to be able to overcome Colorado. I think it'll be close. Maybe it's an OT win for the Kraken, but I think the Kraken are going to find a way to win this game. They're not going to let Cale Makar win for their home opener. Like, they're just not going to. That it's impossible. So I'm going with the Kraken win here on my board. So next, though, Carolina comes into town, RJ, the Sebastian Aho revenge game for the career in which he won't have now that he can't join the Kraken.
Showing the Kraken what they missed out on, I guess, in a weird way.
Yeah, this is one where I think because of the vibes and them overcoming and beating Colorado in the previous game, I think this is a little bit of a hangover game for them. So I'm going to have Carolina taking this one.
I'm going to agree with you. I think Carolina will take this one. Obviously, in my version, it's not the Colorado win hangover. But yeah, Carolina's a really good hockey team. I think they've given the Kraken fits in the past, even though the Kraken had some big wins against them, especially in the first season. I'll have Carolina taking this one.
All right, then the Rangers come to town on the 21st. RJ, Shesterkin always does it to us. He just goalies us every time, and they're always playing in CPA in October, it feels like, and every year he goalies us because it's early in the season and he's fresh. I think that happens again this year. However, I think the Kraken are improved, and they get it to overtime before the loss comes in, so I do have them picking up their first loser point on my board.
All right, I'm going to go Rangers win in regulation. I'll say 3-1 or something like that. Kraken outshoot the Rangers by a significant margin, but Shesterkin does his thing.
All right. Then a couple days off before the Kraken kick off another road trip going to Detroit, RJ.
Yeah, so with the Red Wings, I mean, I'm still waiting for the Yzer plan to come together. I kind of need to see it before I can believe it. I think earlier in the season, they're still going to be gelling. They've got some new additions. They've got like DeBrincat coming in. I think DeBrincat's going to make some play that makes a Kraken defender look silly. Yeah. I think it's not going to be enough to win. I think Seattle takes that game.
I do as well. And then off to Carolina. So the second game against the Hurricanes, RJ. I think this one... Carolina is a tough team. They always play us tough, but I think the Kraken can get a win here and kind of get that early season split against them.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to give them a win there too. Early season split. Just take 1-1 because I think I had the loss at home. Win on the road. I mean, that's a very Kraken-like thing, huh?
Yeah, I think so. And then on the 28th, going into Florida, RJ. Looks like a matinee game kind of for us.
Oh, yeah, that should be fun.
Yeah, Florida, interesting team. Look, Florida, again, they're going to be healthy. I think at the beginning of the season here, I think this is going to be another L for the Kraken.
Really? Against Florida? Kraken match up well against the Panthers.
I know. I just think, Tkachuk and everything going on there. Barkov should be healthy again.
Tkachuk's not going to be playing, right?
You don't think so?
He's hurt from the Cup final.
Oh, that's true. You don't think he'll be healthy by then?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I just don't get good feelings about it. I know we've always done well going into Florida. I don't know. I'm not feeling it.
All right. Well, I'm going to say Kraken win there, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I think Florida's going to have that Cup final hangover. They're still going to have some guys hurt. Yeah, Kraken win there for me.
All right. And then on the 30th, the last game of the month of October, against the Tampa Bay Lightning. What's going on there, RJ?
I mean, we've seen this before on Kraken road trips with Florida. That you get a big win, you do well, and then Tampa is just so tough. I believe the Lightning are the last team the Kraken have not beat.
That's true. Yeah, because we didn't get the win against.
0-4 against Tampa. Yeah. Yep. So I'm gonna chalk up another loss here. Sorry, I don't think they get it done in Tampa.
I agree. Not that early in the season. Give it a little bit of time. Let Tampa wear down a little, and then maybe things will change. First game of November, back home at Climate Pledge Arena with Nashville coming to town. It's another win, RJ. I'm not feeling this Nashville team this year. I think the Kraken get another W.
Yeah, I'm not feeling Nashville either. I think we might even see the Preds backup goalie at some point. In one of these two games, I think we'll see Saros not play. This might be that game, especially in Seattle. It feels like in Seattle, the Kraken tend to get a lot of other teams' backups. So I'm going to go with a win here with Saros not in net.
All right, and then Calgary coming to town on the 4th. Look, this Flames team, RJ, has taken a beating every which way you put it over the offseason. I'm not too worried about them this year in the division, and I'm not worried about them in this game either. I think that's another win for the Kraken.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go with an overtime loss. The Flames always, even last season, just gave the Kraken fits, even though everything was going wrong for them. Just something about the matchup there. I'm going to probably lean on that going forward in this podcast, just the vibes of what I remember from past games. But yeah, I think this is one that maybe the Kraken feel like slipped away.
You don't think that changes with the coaching change?
I don't know. The players largely are still there, so I don't think it'll change.
Okay. And then we go back on the road for a 2-game road swing. First stop is Arizona, RJ. Do we even need to talk about it? It's a dub.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, the Coyotes, I think, are certainly improved for this season. Logan Cooley coming to the team, and they've got some reinforcements there, but I don't think they're ready yet. Maybe by the end of the season as it all kind of gels together. But this game, I think the Kraken take it.
A month in, not happening. Then the last stop on that little road trip is in Colorado. This is where, I have the Kraken winning that game at home. I don't think they go into Colorado and get the win. I don't think that's going to happen, especially if the Kraken get the win at CPA the month prior. Not happening in Colorado.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here, even though I have the Avs winning in overtime. I think it'll be a close game. I think the second one will probably be a close game, but I'll give it to the Avs in regulation. They're a good team. They're going to be motivated. Like every game they play against the Kraken, they're going to be motivated.
Definitely. Then back home against the Oilers on the 11th, RJ, can they stop Draisaitl and McDavid?
No. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't think so. I've seen this too many times last season. Okay, let's pick how many McDavid points in this one. What do you think?
It's early season in CPA. I'm going to say 4.
That's a real solid guess. That's where I was going also. I'll go 4 for McDavid. Only 1 for Draisaitl. It feels like only one of those two tend to go off each game.
Yeah, but
Kraken.
it'll be like the goal that really just, puts the game out of reach kind of thing.
Right. I think like middle of the third period, it's maybe a 1-goal Oilers lead, and then boom, that's the second, the 2-goal lead, and that'll do it. I could see that.
Yeah, I could see him having the game winner in that. And then Colorado comes back to Climate Pledge Arena, RJ. Now, this is one where, just because of how recent the previous one is, I think Colorado probably continues to build off of that, and they come in, and I think this will be an overtime loss for the Kraken.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I think in my timeline, the Kraken have dropped the first 2 games to Colorado.
Yes.
I think this is the one they'll finally get over the hump here. They're going to be feeling it, especially after an Edmonton loss. I think they're going to take that personally after McDavid puts up 4 points on them.
Yep.
I think they're going to go out and they're going to beat Colorado at home, and that's going to be a big statement win.
Yep. And then, oh boy, isn't this lovely, RJ? On the 15th of November, you get to go to Edmonton before returning home on the 16th, but we'll get to that game in a sec. So 15th in Edmonton, RJ, what's happening?
Oh man, I really wanted to pick a win here. Because, you know what? I'll still pick a win here because I think they'll be riding the high from the Colorado game. They'll want to turn it into more than one win. I think they'll want to get 2 wins in a row here. I feel like I've been going kind of, win, loss, a lot of this. They're near 500, I think, in my record prediction here. I think it'll be a statement game against Edmonton, who they just lost to. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think you're going to have a really good game from, I'm guessing, let's say Grubauer in net, because I think you'll probably give the backup the Islanders game. Yeah. Grubauer is going to play really well. He's going to have a bounce back. Give me the win.
I think it's going to be an OTL loss. I think they're going to have back-to-back overtime losses. I just think I agree with you. I think it'll be like a low-scoring 2-1 kind of weird game against Edmonton, but the star power in 3-on-3 overtime just gets it done for the Oilers. Or the shootout star power. Right. Either way, I think that favors them. But now the next day, yes, on the 16th, you got to come back to Seattle and face the Islanders, RJ. I mean, they're not the scariest team in the world, but boy, it sure seems like they are good at capitalizing on situations like this, where the team traveled the day before.
Yeah, this screams trap game to me. This is something we're going to be well aware of at the time. I don't know. Certainly, given that I picked the win at Edmonton, I think I'm going to take the loss here against the Islanders. I do think they drop one of these 2 games. It's a tough back-to-back. Edmonton to Seattle, back-to-back days. I don't know how you win both.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a regulation loss for them as well. And then, on the 17th, that next day, everybody can be in full panic mode because I've got the Kraken losing a lot in a row there, about 5 games, either in regulation or overtime. But I think things turn around on the 18th, RJ, when we go to Vancouver. Because, come on, it's Vancouver. I don't think Rick Tocchet's going to have everything figured out for the Canucks early in the season. Certainly, if he does, it'll be a short little window. But this far into November, Kraken are just the better team. Hands down.
They are. But Dylan, you remember the Canucks curse, though. It took a long time for the Kraken to finally beat the Canucks. But you think now that they did that, it's over? I mean, it's just going to revert back to what it should be.
Yes. And I mean, like, what are we expecting, right? Like, are you expecting like a total turnaround from Thatcher Demko again? Pettersson had a good season, but you think like Besser figures it out. Like, what is this Vancouver team even supposed to like look like and do?
Oh yeah, no, I don't think they're. We'll get to the division preview next week, but no, I don't think they're going to be very good. But yeah, no, I do think the Kraken will win this one. Tocchet won't have everything figured out with the team by this point. We know what they do, right? They struggle early, and then they get out of playoff contention essentially, and they go on a big run late in the season. So we'll see if they have any games against each other late in the season. I might not feel as optimistic, but yeah, chalk up the win here.
Yep, I got them then, making this a little bit of a win streak on the 20th against Calgary. It's at home against Calgary. I just don't think Calgary is going to be a team that's going to bother the Kraken this year.
All right. I mean, we disagree on that a little bit, but I'm still going to do the win here. I had them losing. Actually, both these Calgary games are at home to start off here, both in Seattle. So I had them losing the first one. I think they'll win the second one. They'll learn the lessons. They won't take the Flames lightly.
All right. And then we have San Jose on the 22nd at home. This is a Sharks team, RJ, that no longer has Erik Karlsson. It was kind of everything for them last year. I mean, look, they're a rebuilding team. They've got a lot of stuff to figure out. Another dub for the Kraken.
Yep, another dub for the Kraken, another loss for the Sharks. I mean, they're going to be losing a lot next season. I don't worry about this game at all.
Yep, and then Vancouver again, RJ, this time at home in Seattle. Do you think things are different?
So this is Carson Soucy's return to Seattle. So this will be kind of a fun game. I think you'll have a nice tribute video up on the Jumbotron. And you know what? I think he's going to score a goal.
Oh, interesting. But is it like a goal that's going to really matter, RJ?
Yes, I think it's a goal that's going to matter, but it's going to be early in the game. So I think it's going to make it, 1-0 or, 2-1 or something like that pretty early in the game. So that is a goal that matters.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately the Kraken will come out on top.
All right. I do as well. Then on the 28th, RJ, Kraken go on the road, and we get our first look at Connor Bedard with the Chicago Blackhawks. Is he going to light it up, RJ, against the Kraken? Is he going to be the latest Kraken killer?
You know what? I think he's got to get at least 1 point in this game. Just vibes. I'm feeling him get a 2-point night, one goal, 1 assist. But I just don't see Chicago winning this game. I mean, they're still very much in rebuild mode. But the real question, Dylan, does Ryan Donato get a point?
It's a good question. It's our first time playing Ryan Donato. I think he could. Like, that seems like the kind of thing he would do,
Yeah, it totally does. No, I mean, look, we saw how well he played against, Minnesota, San Jose, Boston, his former teams while he was in Seattle. I expect that to continue. I think he'll get an assist.
Yeah, I think so as well. It just seems
like jamming the puck to the net and then it just kind of pops open for somebody else. Like not just a pass, a secondary assist or whatever. He'll be right in the thick of things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he could even get a goal kind of net front, just like bury a rebound or something like that. I could see something like that happening as well. And then last game of the month, November 30th, RJ, against Toronto. Will this be a Martin Jones revenge game?
No, I do not think he will be starting a net for Toronto. That's the reason. I think if he was playing, it would be a Martin Jones revenge game. And I would certainly give the Leafs the win, just knowing how these things go. But no, I don't think Martin Jones will be in net. But I do think the Leafs are going to win this one.
I think the Leafs will win it as well. Maybe they'll stick Martin Jones in. I just think, early on, I don't know. I think the Leafs will just have the firepower to kind of outscore the Kraken for that one. All right, so into December 2nd against the Ottawa Senators, RJ. I mean, we had some big offensive explosions against them last year. I don't know. They got no DeBrincat this year to try to keep up with.
Yeah, I mean, is this the year it finally comes together for the Senators? I mean, they've been, building talented players. Did we get to see Chychrun last season play? I think we did.
I think
against
for
the Kraken,
the last
for that late game post deadline.
Yeah.
And I, if I remember correctly, I think he looked pretty good.
He did.
You know what? I'm going to go with an overtime loss here. I think it'll be a high scoring affair. I think it'll be a little bit sloppy defensively. And yeah, just it'll get to overtime. I'll go shootout loss. I mean, it doesn't matter points wise, record wise, but I'll go shootout loss. I mean, look, we know how the Kraken do in shootouts. The Sens have some real good talent there. Oh, that's what I'll go with.
I think it'll be a regulation loss for the Kraken. I think it'll be like a 5-4 type situation where I agree with you. It's not going to be a pretty game. Like none of the games we play against them are pretty, but I think they'll be able to pull it out, the Senators. And then off to Montreal, RJ, as we finish this little Eastern Canadian road trip. Canadians, I'm not feeling the Canadians this year. I think this is back in the win column for the Kraken.
Agreed on that one. Now, the question, though, Dylan, is Shane Wright in the lineup for this game? I know we've done the whole prognosticating. Is he in the lineup? And if so, does he score a goal like he did against Montreal last season?
Look, yes, because I've been on this boat of I don't think they're going to get the exemption to have him play for Coachella Valley, so I think he's going to be on the Kraken roster, and if he's in, on the Kraken roster, they're going to play him. I think he absolutely plays. I think this is his first game in Montreal against them, and I think he'd do well. I don't think he'll get a point, but I think he'll play super, super solid on the fourth line. Like, that's what I think would happen.
Okay, we're pretty much in agreement here because I think if he's in the lineup, I don't see him getting a point. He's going to play really solidly. And I think also Slavkovsky will get an assist, and then we'll hear no end of it from the Montreal fans, even though we could look at it and see, okay, Shane Wright probably had a better game.
Yeah, I don't even think Slavkovsky will get an assist. I think people are going to walk away from that game going, Shane Wright still looks like he's got it as a center, and there's still going to be concerns about Slavkovsky. But we'll find out. From that game, Kraken get 2 days off before coming back home against New Jersey, who will probably have Simon Nemec playing with them, another person Montreal could have taken instead of Slavkovsky. New Jersey, RJ, it's a good team, but the Kraken tend to stack up really well against them.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they've had some big wins in their history against New Jersey. I think the Devils are a really good team. They made some more improvements in the offseason. This is a tough one. I could feel this one going to overtime. I mean, that's my first feeling with it. I think it could go to overtime. I think the Devils take it in overtime, though. On the strength of 2 Timo Meier goals, I will guess.
I think New Jersey's
Jack Hughes won't get a point.
Yeah, well, that's a shirt. He's going to find a way to miss the game entirely. I think that there's going to the bottom line is New Jersey this year is going to be really dangerous. Not only do they have the firepower up front and the responsible play of Nico Hischier, that blue line is insane, RJ. If Luke Hughes gets going and Nemec gets going, they could essentially have 3 pairings where they have a 50-point defenseman on each one. Okay, so I think that and the Kraken historically kind of struggle against offensively active blue lines like that, right? Like we saw what Cale Makar can do to them in the past. I think they're just going to struggle in this game, and I think it's a regulation loss. I don't know. But I think it'll be a fun game to watch, hockey-wise. Then we get Tampa coming into town, RJ. Is this where the Kraken get their first ever Tampa Bay win?
I really want to say yes. I want to believe it. I just can't. I just can't, Dylan. I'm sorry. Regulation loss. I think the Kraken will come out swinging. They'll play a really solid, tight game, but they just will not be able to score. I think Vasilevsky in net, and just they can't get one by him. I'll go 2-0 win for Tampa.
I think you're 100% wrong. I think this is where the Kraken get their first win over the Lightning. December 9th. Everybody book it now. Don't actually put real money on that, though. Don't hold me to that. But I think this is where it happens. And then the next day, RJ, against Minnesota, one of the flattest performances from the Seattle Kraken, I think. Massive hangover game, 5-1 loss in regulation to Minnesota the next day.
Oof. Okay, that's an interesting guess there. Okay, so when you say 5-1, I was thinking Fleury shutout if that was the case.
Well, you could be that. Fleury's getting a little old.
Have the flat
one can get past him,
Okay, just the late garbage time goal past Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree. I think Marc-Andre Fleury is going to start that game. The Kraken will struggle to get one by him, and they'll Wild to find a way to win in regulation.
All right. And then on to the Panthers coming to CPA, RJ. This is one where I think we get an opposite result from where they played them earlier in the season. I have this being a win for the Kraken.
All right. I'm going to go with opposite result from earlier in the season. I think it'll be a loss for the Kraken.
Okay.
Yeah, we kind of feel that Panthers series just splitting there. Maybe Tkachuk will be back at that point. I think we'll have more reinforcements ready to go.
All right. And then on the 14th against Chicago, Connor Bedard's first trip to Seattle. The problem is it's still on this Chicago team that's not going to be any better. It's another win for the Kraken.
Yep, another win for the Kraken. I could see a Ryan Donato goal also.
I think it's going to be a very loud cheer. Do you think that would be the loudest cheer for a returning former Kraken player in CPA history? Because I think it might be.
You know what? Yes, I think you're right.
He's the
I'm
most
trying to think of other options. Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, he's the most beloved player to have left the franchise at this point. He stayed around for a couple years. Everybody got really attached to him for obvious reasons. He's a fabulous human being. But more so than like, Gio was only here for like the half season, even though he was captain. People were really happy to see Lauzon come back because he was playing for the other team. But as far as like, this is a player we all really, really cherished and kept close to our hearts, Ryan Donato is that first guy coming back for sure.
Yeah, I think you might actually hear a noticeable cheer when he scores the goal if that happens, from the Blackhawks fans, but also I think some Kraken fans might stand up and applaud.
Yeah. And then the last one for this home.
If the game's out of hand, by the way, I'm not saying they'll just go cheer a goal against them, but like let's say 5-0, 5-1. Look at that. Yes. Hey, good job, Donato.
And then last game of the homestand against the LA Kings on December 16th. RJ, we match up well against the Kings. I think this could be an all season long battle when it comes to the standings in the division against them. I think though this one starts off with a home loss to LA.
I think we're thinking the same way, actually. Yeah, no, I think the Kings are going to do well. I mean, I picture Cam Talbot getting the start and doing really well for LA in this game. It's just something I'm imagining with this one. I can see Adrian Kempe getting a couple goals as the Kings take it maybe 4-2.
Yeah, I just think it'll be one of those kind of just off games for the Kraken. Then they start a road trip going to Dallas first, RJ, going back to American Airlines Center, the site of where our season ended last year in that Game 7 of Round 2. And I think the Kraken show up, they play a great game, and they walk away with the loser point.
Oh, interesting. Okay, you've convinced me. I'm gonna go with that. I was thinking an overtime win, but you know what? I think the Kraken will have a lead late. The Stars will do their thing, and they'll find a way to win. I'll say actually in the shootout. I think both teams will play super conservative in overtime. It gets to a shootout, and let's go Pavelski for the winner because of course.
Of course. I was gonna say, look, we saw them play not just in that playoff series, but also in the regular season. These two teams, it felt like every game was a 1-goal game. It could go either direction at any given time. Maybe I'm letting my last two experiences in that building influence me a little bit when I have the overtime loss, but it's going to be a close and exciting game that's going to keep us on the edge of our seats from start to finish, because that's just what these two teams do when they play each other. And then, RJ, I get to sit like 1.5 miles away from the ice up in the press bridge at Crypto.com Arena and watch the Kraken come into LA to play the Kings, where I think the Kraken get the win, because that's what the Kraken do at Crypto.com Arena. They get W's.
They do, and I think they'll get another one there, especially since we're both forecasting the loss a couple days ago or a couple games ago at Climate Pledge Arena. I think they'll bounce back from that one. I see this happening with a lot of these close games where I think they might take the loss at home and then get the win on the road. We'll see if the team is kind of the same as they were last year, that Road Warrior team, but I could see that continuing.
Yep. Now, again, maybe a little bit of a preview to what we're going to talk about next week, but then they go and they play the Anaheim Ducks on the 23rd of December. And I think the Ducks season, RJ, is going to start riding a high with all the fun young players, and then they're going to dip in performance a little, only to be rescued by John Gibson, who's trying to play his way out of Anaheim. And I think this is going to be one of those goalie games where John Gibson just gets us for no reason right before Christmas, because that's what he does.
I actually don't see that happening. I think right before Christmas, right before the break, I trust the Kraken to be in a rhythm, to be playing well. The Ducks are not a good team. I don't see John Gibson being a hero. I still don't see what the big deal is with him. Yes, he was really good 5 years ago. Hasn't been very good since. I'm not buying it. I think the Kraken take this win.
He hasn't had anything to play for, RJ, but now he does, because they're finally open to trading him. That's the difference. All right, then the Kraken get a couple days off for Christmas before heading up to Calgary, RJ. With your apparently your favorite, bestest team ever in your mind, the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Dylan, but I'm going to pick another Kraken loss here. And it's partially because of the Calgary Flames, but also partially because they will be coming off a 4-day break. The Kraken historically have not done well over breaks of 4 more days. I think coming back, you're going to take some lumps in that first game returning. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a 3-day break.
24, 25, 26. Oh, it is a 3-day break. I'm not changing my pick.
Okay. Just trying. I actually agree with you. It's in part because of the long break, in part because I have them winning the 2 games in Seattle already. I do think Calgary's going to find a way to win that one in front of their home crowd. And then the last game of 2023, RJ, against the Flyers at home. Philly comes in. Torts is coming into the building, RJ, if he's still with that team and they haven't fired him yet. It's going.
I mean, what do you think? What do you think, Dylan? Is Carter Hart still there? Is he starting? What's going
on? No, this is a win for the Kraken. Like, come on. I think the
Flyers.
Yeah, the most exciting thing the most exciting thing to look forward to is, does Gritty make the road trip to do something with Bowie? That's the only reason to even think about this game.
Pretty much. And I don't think he will. So there's really not a whole lot of reason. The only reason I could see this potentially being a trap game is that it's the last game before the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
And are you looking ahead to the Winter Classic? Are you thinking more? I'm sure they'll get getting questions nonstop about it. You know, they'll have that on their minds. I still don't think they'll get distracted. Maybe a little bit. It might be a closer game than it should be against the Flyers, but I think the Kraken take care of business.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, RJ, just like with the Will Borgen over-under on media appearances, just don't ask them questions about the Winter Classic before the game against the Flyers. You're in control of this. Just go and tell everybody.
But Dylan, we need to get the Winter Classic scoops. We need to know how they're feeling about playing on the ice soon. On the
ice soon. Yes, that's what we're needing to know from hockey players. What's it like to play hockey on ice?
That's exactly how will it feel to play on the ice soon? I only ask the best questions, Dylan.
Yes, well, we know that. All right, so end of the year, RJ, should we see what we have their records at currently?
Yes. Yep, let's do a little check-in here.
All right, so I have the Kraken at 19-14-4.
Okay. I must have miscounted here because I have a different number of total games, I think.
Okay, I might have double counted at one point.
All right. So it's close. It's a 1-game difference. Yeah, so it's close. So I have them at 18-13-5. So that's actually quite close to yours. So
yes.
Even though it feels like we've disagreed about a lot of games,
right?
It feels like it's made up for each other, right?
Yeah.
So we have pretty similar records. We're basically going about as many wins as losses.
Yes.
So it's above NHL 500 because of loser points.
Yes.
But we're kind of thinking in that same neighborhood where about the same number of wins and losses,
yep.
Maybe a little bit worse of a pace than what overall last season was, but still pretty good record. That's good enough for playoff position, I think.
Yeah, now I had made a note for myself way back in October that I might have double counted a win. I'm assuming that is what happened there, so I really have them then at 18-14-4. So just about 500 there. I just don't think they're going to have the same hot start to the season that they kind of had last year in those first couple months. Is the bottom line.
Yeah, like that really hot November and everything. I think that's going to be hard to replicate. I think it'll be a little bit more up and down.
Yeah, exactly. But January 2024, new season, new look, RJ, as they step out onto the ice for that ice that they play on for the Winter Classic against the Vegas Golden Knights for the 2024 Discover NHL Winter Classic.
Dylan, what do you think? What do you think happens here? I'll let you try and start on a good note here before I bring it down.
I think that the Golden Knights are going to Golden Knight this game and do what they do, because any chance they have to be the most hated team in the NHL, they rise to the occasion so that they can be the most hated team in the NHL, and they win a 2-1 game that they make a boring slog just to ruin everybody's time because they're Vegas and I hate them.
You know what? That's basically exactly where I was going. And also just it feels like the road team always win these outdoor games.
Every time
right?
It happens, yes.
It's so rare that a home team can actually win a game like this. I mean, let's see. We've been to 2. I know I've been to 2. You've been to 1. We went to the
Kings,
Ducks Kings at Dodger Stadium. Wasn't that 3-0 Ducks?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a Ducks win. Then you went to the one and at Levi Stadium.
Right, and that was a 2-1 Kings win. I mean, that's kind of what I'm picturing, is that just kind of 2-1 slog. Yeah, so unfortunately, I think that's the way it's going to go. Hoping the Kraken prove me wrong with that. But I'm sorry. It's Vegas, too.
That's the problem. Vegas. They could have given us anybody else. They gotta
It was
force this.
Vancouver.
They gotta force this dumb rivalry just because we're like new like them. Like, come on, get over it, NHL. I guess at least they remembered we existed long enough to give us the Winter Classic. That was actually pretty good of them. Still, I'm honestly still a little surprised. All right. So then after that, on the 4th, get a home game against Ottawa. This is where the Kraken are going to take out all their frustrations from that Winter Classic game, RJ, and those poor kids in Ottawa are just not going to know what hit them.
Yep, I'm going 7-3 Kraken win, and some of those are garbage time goals for Ottawa too, just because some sloppy defense when the game's already out of hand.
Yep, I think that's a good one. And then on January 9th, we go on a road trip, East Coast swing. Start off in Buffalo. Matty gets to see his the guy beat out for the Calder Trophy, Owen Power. They can take another classic photo together because that's all they do whenever they're in the same city. What do you think's going to happen in this Buffalo game, RJ? Because Buffalo, they're on a team on the upswing.
They are. The Kraken have never lost to the Buffalo Sabres. They're 4-0 all time against Buffalo. I think that winning ways, that's going to continue. I'm going the opposite side of the Tampa thing. I think they're just going to continue to lose to Tampa, going to continue to beat Buffalo. So I'm having to take the win here.
I do as well. I think this is going to be like a big road trip for them as a whole as we continue to go through it. And that includes the next game against the Washington Capitals.
Oh, wait, Dylan, hang on. I'm sorry. I need to switch my pick.
Oh, what happened?
I realized that there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 days off in between the Ottawa and Buffalo games.
Oh, no, this is the time they break the curse.
Yep. So anyway, I'm switching my pick there. Sorry.
That's fine. I still think that the anger over the Winter Classic will be enough to get them through a 4-game swing. You know why? Because they're going on to the road. So one of those days will be a travel day for them, so it won't feel like a day off.
Okay.
That's
possibly.
That's my galaxy brain approach to that. To justify my pick of a win. Then on to Washington against the Capitals, RJ. Outside of Ovi, Chase, and Gretzky, there's not much to look at for this Capitals team. I think that's another win for the Kraken.
Agreed. I think the Kraken had a really good game against the Capitals last season. They felt was one of those banner games that they wanted to model their game after. I think that's something they still remember. It's something the players still talked about at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So it's stuck with them. And look, the Caps are not going to be an easy out. They play teams really tough. I think the Kraken are going to step up to the challenge, and they're going to be the more talented team.
I agree. Then, RJ, it finally happens. We get to play the Columbus Blue Jackets, and we get to see Mike Babcock coaching again, RJ. Isn't it going to be exciting? Not to mention the imaginary Jake Bean revenge game for not picking him in the expansion draft. That's the other fun thing to look forward to. This one's tough for me, RJ, because I want to pick against Mike Babcock because I don't think he's going to be a good coach for the Columbus Blue Jackets. But at the same time, Johnny Hockey, Patrick Laine, if they figure out all that stuff there, I mean, they could be an okay team.
They could, and I do think at least for this game, they're going to put it together. Now, one thing I remember from the game in Seattle against the Blue Jackets last season, I mean, they were just such a bad team, so beat up. I mean, you could tell it was basically an AHL roster, but they played really hard, and Elvis Merzlikins just played really well. He kind of had the Kraken's number, kept the Blue Jackets in it for a long time, and if there was just any scoring talent on that team, anybody who could put the puck in the net, I think Columbus would have won that game. I think they're going to have some more of that this season.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an OTL loss for the Kraken. I think I'm gonna really downplay Columbus probably before that game. Talk about Mike Babcock. Talk about Kent Johnson, and I'll rag on him, and then they're just gonna put it together just to spite me and prove me wrong. It just feels like something that'll happen in mid-January, RJ. And so I think it's gonna be an overtime loss for the Kraken. Johnny Hockey with the game winner, and we have to watch his little smiling, happy face out there. Then on the road, the new old look Penguins, RJ. Or should I say the old new look Penguins? Erik Karlsson joining the Penguins, RJ, as they try to make one last geriatric push for a Stanley Cup. What do you think happens?
First of all, overall, I think it's not going to work out. Who knows if Erik Karlsson's even healthy by this point in the season? But yeah, I think he will be, actually. I think he will play in this game. I think he'll have a couple points, but I think he'll make a crucial defensive mistake or just get walked around maybe more than once in a way that leads to a Kraken game-winning goal. So I've got Seattle taking this one.
I also have Seattle winning this game. I think this game will be 5-3, and all the Penguins' goals will be on the power play.
Interesting. Okay, that's a bold prediction. I like that.
Bold prediction time. The Penguins might be the first team like ever to have more power play goals than even strength goals this year. Like, I think that power play is going to be lit, and I don't think the rest of that team's going to be lit at all. It's going to be very dim and dark. All right, then next night off to MSG to play the Rangers, RJ. Back-to-back nights. You know what? I think it'll be back-to-back wins. I don't think Shesterkin's going to goalie them at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
no, I no, it's all right. It's all right. I think the Kraken finally figure him out. I think they get enough past Shesterkin. It's going to be low scoring, but I think they're going to play really well defensively. And number one, stay out of the box. I think they'll take one penalty all game.
Yeah.
And that's going to be key with the Rangers power playing being as good as it is.
Yeah, I think so. And then last game of the road swing, stop off in Edmonton, where McDavid and Draisaitl do their thing. This is a loss for the Kraken.
Yep, got to agree there. They just scare me too much. I think this is the Draisaitl game, though.
Yeah,
McDavid's only going to get 1 point. Draisaitl's going to get like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
it's going to be most of them on the power play.
Yep.
After that great discipline against the Rangers, all the penalties are going to come out against Edmonton,
and 3 of them are going to be set up from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Okay, and then on the 21st, come back home, kick things off against Toronto. This is the Martin Jones revenge game. Calling it now.
Oh, you think so?
I absolutely. Come on, look at it, RJ. Just look at it right there on the schedule. Look at it. It says Martin Jones revenge game. The subtext is there.
Let's see. 6 p.m. Tickets as low as $126. I don't see Martin Jones revenge game.
It's there. They wrote it in white font so you can't see it, but it's there. They did one of the old resume tricks, you know.
There you go. So you must have highlighted it there. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think it's Martin Jones' revenge game. I don't think he plays in this one. That'd be pretty cool if he did play. But yeah, I do think it's still a Leafs win, though. It seems like they always kind of blow out the Kraken, except for the one time I think it was like a 5-1 Kraken win. But it's not going to be a close game either way, I think. But yeah, I think Toronto just takes it. In Seattle, I don't know. It scares me.
No, Toronto has to keep beating the Kraken so that all of the Toronto media continues to forget we exist. That's just fate. That's just how it works. It has nothing to do with the team on the ice. It all has to do with the media off of it.
All right. Question for you, Dylan, though. For the 2 games in Seattle that the Leafs have played the Kraken in Seattle, they had 5 goals and they had 6 goals. Can the Kraken hold them under 5 in this one?
Yeah, I think so. Because it's gonna be a Martin Jones revenge game. It's gonna be a goalie situation. It'll be a low scoring affair. Yeah. All right. So then off to Chicago. Chicago coming to town on the 24th. It's another win for the Kraken.
Yeah, are we going season sweep against Chicago? I think we both are.
That feels pretty safe. Yes,
team's gonna be bad.
Yeah. And then St. Louis comes to town on the 26th. Now, that was one of our first big disagreements at the beginning of the season. How you feeling about St. Louis at this point in the season, late January?
Not as good. I think they won't just be like shot out of a cannon like the beginning of the season. I think things will have slowed down for them a little bit. I think the Kraken will remember that game from earlier in the season where St. Louis might appear more motivated than a 2-0 Kraken team. I think the Kraken get the win.
I think this is going to be like kind of the opposite thing. I think this is going to be an overtime loss for the Kraken because like Binnington does something to get in their heads and the Kraken just kind of lose it. Then Columbus comes to town. Mike Babcock coming to town. RJ, are you excited? You going to go listen to him talk?
Yay.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. I think things are a little different this time. I think Kraken take care of business at home. Bjorkstrand's going to get 2 goals and an assist against his former team.
There you go. 2 goals and an assist. Okay, I like that call. Yeah, I think the Kraken will take care of business. I think they'll kind of bust through the goaltending for Columbus. Maybe they'll even see the backup or something. Yeah. I think it'll work out pretty well for them.
Yeah, see, and you think Bjorkstrand will be the whole story of that game, but really what'll be a story is the fact that he was playing on the second line centered by Shane Wright. That's going to take up everything.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
That'll be the story.
Yep, I don't know why I threw that in there, but here we go. And then on the 30th, the Kraken make the trip to San Jose. Again, this Sharks team is just bad, RJ. It kind of feels like Chicago. It's just whenever we play them, I think you just have to count on a win.
Right. And I do remember around this time of year last season going onto the road in San Jose and seeing the Kraken completely lay an egg. But I don't think that happens this time. I think they'll put up 8 goals in this game.
All right.
I think Sharks are just going to be, in tatters. The defense, Kraken will put up a whole bunch of goals. Let's see, which Sharks goalie will be in net? Who do they even have anymore?
I don't even, can I name any? They got Blackwood
Kakkonen?
from
Oh,
New
Mackenzie
Jersey.
Blackwood. Yeah. Actually, Blackwood's was good against the Kraken, though. I think. I seem to remember him having good
you've already
games
called an octo game, so you can't
All right, so it's Capo Kakkonen then.
All right, there we go. Matches up. Then we get the All-Star break to start February, RJ, before they started on a little East Coast road trip in Philadelphia. This feels like why do all these Flyers games feel like trap games? What's up with that? Who did that?
I know, both of them.
I think the Kraken can find a way to win this one, though, because the Flyers are that bad.
They are that bad, but I'm going to go OTL. The long All-Star break, Dylan.
Ugh.
I mean, it scares me, especially, I mean, it's more than 10 days off. I think it's going to take a little while for them to get back into sorts. Okay, here's my positive prediction for this one.
Uh-huh.
That nobody will get hurt on the first shift back like Andrei Burakovsky did. I think they'll avoid that fate for a second straight year.
All right. I would be very, very happy with that one. Then they go up. They play New Jersey in New Jersey. Again, I just think this New Jersey Devils team is kind of a step above what they've been the last couple of years, and that's another L for the Kraken.
Agreed. On the road, it's going to be really tough. I think Dougie Hamilton gets a couple goals.
Man, that blue line's stupid. And then the Islanders, RJ, the very next day, because that's the only way we can play the Islanders, is the day after another game. I think the Islanders this time, they get the win. So I think it's another regulation loss for the Kraken.
All right. You think 2 regulation losses in back-to-back games.
Yep.
I think they'll bounce back after that Devils game and they'll beat the Islanders in a close one, but I think goaltending will be the difference.
Yeah, I kind of have the Kraken entering a little bit of a slump here as we move into Boston. I have no idea who's going to score the goals for Boston, RJ, but I think Boston is going to use the All-Star break to make some wheeling and dealing happen, and they're going to make a big trade. This will be one of the first games for a big-time player with the Bruins, and then also the goaltending and defense. I think the Kraken drop this one as well for a 3-game skid.
I like the specific prediction there with the trade and the new trade acquisition coming in. I could see that happening. Morgan Geekie, though. It'll be Geekie's first game against the Kraken.
Yep.
Do you think he factors into the scoring at all?
Absolutely. Like,
how? Because I see like a
by scoring
rebound type of thing.
Oh no,
I know.
It'll be a defensive breakdown. He like takes advantage of. Like Dumoulin pinches up, falls down like he did 7,000 times last year, and then Geekie just comes in and scores just off the rush, the way he scored a lot of goals for the Kraken last year.
All right. Yeah, I mean that would kind of fit the pattern of how he would score the goals. And yeah, I could see some defensive pinches coming back to bite the Kraken. Look, I think the Bruins are also going to remember that game in Boston last season. 3-0 shutout. I think they're going to get on the board early.
Yeah, and I think Morgan Geekie, maybe he doesn't score, but he wins like 10 of 13 faceoffs. Right, like he just keeps the Kraken from doing anything, and he's a big disruptor. I could easily see that happening as well. So that's that. I do think the Kraken have a little bit of a skid there. However, they come home against the Detroit Red Wings and they right the ship a little bit, and I think they get an overtime win.
Okay, overtime win for the Kraken there. This is a tough one for me to pick. Now, Dylan, from one former Kraken to another, Daniel Sprong.
Yeah.
His return to Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think the reception will be like? I think the fans are going to love him. I think he's going to get, that tribute video. But does he factor into the scoring at all? I mean, if he does, it's got to be a goal, right? No, you don't think so?
I don't think he does. No. I
think Sprong stays quiet.
Yeah, I think Sprong's going to have like 13 or 14 goals next year.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
Predicting some regression there.
Yeah, I think his whole thing only worked because of the matchups and stuff he was able to get as a fourth liner. That's not going to be the case in Detroit because they're paying him. And I think he's just going to struggle all year long. And I think he's the kind of guy that if he struggles, it'll get in his head and then it'll spiral and blah, 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 blah. And he just looks like the same Daniel Sprong that existed pre-Seattle.
All right. I think he scores in this game on the power play in garbage time, as the Kraken already have a big lead.
Okay.
So I think Seattle wins this one.
All right. Then on the 22nd, Vancouver coming back into Seattle. This time, I think things will be a little bit different, RJ. This is where I think the Canucks get a W.
Yeah, we're finding some agreement here. I think Tocchet will have the team motivated. I think the Canucks win will come in the shootout, though. I think it'll be a close enough game. I think Kraken blow a lead in the third period. Canucks tie it up. Overtime, neither team scores, and then Pettersson shootout winner.
Yep.
That's how I see it.
Yep. Minnesota comes to town on the 24th of February. I mean, we're getting close to trade deadline here, RJ. Things are going to be moving and shaking. I don't know. I just don't feel like we're going to do well against the Wild this season for some reason. Like every time I see them and I just get this like pit in my stomach, like, that's not going to be a good one. So I'll say another loss.
I do too in general, but that's mostly because of Marc-Andre Fleury. And I think the Kraken avoid the Fleury start here. And so they'll get the win.
All right. Sounds good. Then Boston comes to town, comes to Seattle on the 26th. This time, I don't think they get the Morgan Geekie revenge game. I don't think their new acquisition matters. This is just Boston doesn't have enough offense to keep up with the Kraken. Kraken get the home win.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that, especially if that first Boston game goes the way that we think it'll go.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Kraken will bounce back. And I don't think the Bruins will be this, almost unbeatable regular season team again this year, certainly losing Bergeron, losing Krejci. I think it'll be a, playoff bubble type of team the Kraken will be facing, and it'll look much more beatable.
But RJ, they have coach of the year, Montgomery.
Yes, that's true. They do. I didn't consider that.
So we all know that really matters. And then to finish off the month, RJ, on the 29th of February, Pittsburgh Penguins come to town. I think there could be some magic for the Penguins in that game.
Really, you do?
Leap year magic. Yep.
Leap year magic. That's right. It's on the leap day.
Yep. And so they're all going to feel their ages if they were, born on a leap year. And so they're going to feel like 13-year-olds, all those old guys on the Penguins, RJ, and I think they come out and they get the win.
Okay, that's interesting rationale for that. I still think I'm not a believer in this Penguins team. I think they kind of flop, and so I'll predict 2 Kraken wins against them. I think Seattle takes this one. They take the leap year magic. Mm-hmm. I'm going with the Kraken win.
All right. So now as we look at March, RJ, let's go over our records again, because early March is going to be when the trade deadline is. It's when it usually is. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming nothing's changed. I have the Kraken at 29, 23, and 6.
Okay, I have them at 31, 20, and 7, so a little bit ahead of you again.
All right, that's a lot of. We're both predicting though a lot of OTL losses this year for the Kraken. Yeah,
I know we have 7 OTLs. I mean, do the shootout results from last year, are they kind of swaying us a little bit? I know shootouts don't happen that much. The Kraken, they stumbled early in overtime last year, and then they really righted the ship as far as their 3-on-3 play. I don't know. I think we just maybe see a lot of close games, and that just results in OTLs. We predicted some overtime wins as well.
Yes, I do think it's going to be one of those where I think the Kraken are a better team, right? They're progressing, and they've reached the point of progression where they can take good teams to overtime, but they haven't quite reached the level where you can consistently beat really good teams in overtime. And so I think that's the kind of the progression. Like they lost to the really good teams in regulation before. Now they can get them to overtime, and then maybe next year it becomes the year where it's like you're beating the really good teams and you are a really good team. But that's where we stand. With these records, though, it sure would signal that they would be buyers at the deadline going into March.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're both predicting that the Kraken saw last year is basically it's all gravy, whatever happens. And so Ron Francis really wasn't that big a buyer at the deadline. Yes, you bring in Megna. He doesn't actually, play for you at all in the playoffs, small acquisition. But this year, I think whatever holes that they may have, I think they're going to try and patch up through some trades. I think you will see players coming in and certainly post deadline, as you look at teams on the schedule they play against who might be sellers. This is when you tend to have games that might be a little bit more lopsided, where teams are maybe tanking for that top draft pick as well, who have let go a lot of their better players.
Yep. All right, so to kick things off in March, we have the Oilers on the 2nd. So it's a loss for the Kraken. Look, the Kraken could win one of these games against the Oilers, but like, good luck picking which one is that fluky day.
Exactly. You don't know. And I just don't think it's going to be at home. Whenever the Oilers come to Climate Pledge Arena, I just have this sense of dread from the game. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of excitement of getting to watch Connor McDavid put up multiple points. Like, that's just fun to watch as someone who enjoys hockey, but it just feels like an inevitability.
Yeah, one day I'll see him play. The Calgary Flames on the 4th, RJ. Kraken go and do a little 2-game back-to-back day Canadian road trip. With Calgary on the first day. I think they get back to their winning ways against the Flames for this one, for me.
Yeah, I think they do too. And against a Flames team that by this point in the season, I do think will be on the downswing. Some other players may have been moved at this point as well. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you.
Now, next up, they have Winnipeg on the 5th. When is the trade deadline, RJ? Because could this be like after a big Winnipeg sell-off?
Let's see. That will be NHL trade deadline 2024.
Because I think that kind of determines what I might go with for this game on the 5th and the 8th, depending on where this trade deadline is.
Right. I don't know that they must have named a date for it.
It must be somewhere. All right, that's fine.
March 9th. Okay, March 9th, 2024.
Okay.
March 9th.
Okay, so it's going to be after both of these next 2 games against Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg wins the game on the 5th, in part because it's a back-to-back road trip night for the Kraken, and that's just rough. And I think Winnipeg guys are going to be trying to play their way out of Winnipeg. So I think this game on the 5th will be a loss for the Kraken, RJ.
Okay.
And then I think they'll win on the 8th because Winnipeg will be sitting anybody of relevant prior to the deadline.
Okay, you kind of beat me to this here with these two, because I do think Winnipeg wins on the 5th in Winnipeg. Those games are always tough for the Kraken.
Yeah.
And then I think on the 8th, you're going to have the Jets probably have sold at some point, and the Kraken will have bought. And I think you're going to see the debut, certainly the home debut, for some new player for the Kraken. I think Francis, even though the deadline's the next day on the 9th, I think he's going to get ahead of it by a few days.
I mean, that's what he's done the previous 2 trade deadlines.
Right, exactly. I think that's his MO. We're going to see the home debut for some new Kraken player. I think they're going to step up and have a multi-point night and lead to a win against Winnipeg.
Very, very nice. Then a couple days off before Vegas comes to town, RJ, for their first trip into Seattle, not for the Winter Classic. I think Vegas gets the win. I think they're going to come in puffing their chests about the Winter Classic, and then they'll just be able to back it up because I hate them.
Yeah, that's basically what they do. I can't have nice things against Vegas, and they're going to still be in a fine spot in the standings.
Who knows what trade deadline shenanigans they pulled out too that they're going to walk in with. They'll just have whoever, and it's
acquired some $9 million player somehow, and they'll be good because Mark Stone will be returning the first game of the playoffs.
Exactly. So yeah. Then Ovi comes to town with the rest of the Capitals, RJ. I assume there will still be players on that team come the 14th. I don't know that we'll be able to name any of them because they'll all either be hurt or somewhere else. But that seems like a good bounce back game for the Kraken. Give them a win.
I'm gonna say it's a regulation loss. I know the Capitals, they'll probably have sold off. I think they'll be closer to playoff position than you think. And they won't have sold as much as you think. And Ovechkin, I think he'll just step up and score, let's say 2 power play goals. He scored a nice one in Climate Pledge. Was it last season, the season before? But I think he hasn't really shown anything like super special where he's taken over a game yet. I think that's the time he's going to do it. Kraken feeling just a little too down after the Vegas game too. Maybe not quite confident enough. That'll be one where, okay, for the next game against Nashville, you really have to, have it be a get right game.
Yeah. Against Nashville, I know I've had them win the first 2 games. I think Nashville might buy at the deadline just because it just feels like something Barry Trotz might do. And I think it'll make a little bit of a difference. So I think Nashville could actually win this game at CPA.
Okay.
What? I'll make it an overtime loss for the Kraken.
That's where I was actually, that's where I was going to go. I said, I think it'll be a close game, but Nashville will edge it out. And this is kind of where you have your mini post trade deadline panic. Like, oh, should they have stood pat like last year? Cause it all worked so well last year.
Yeah.
Are these moves actually a mistake? What's going on? I think at that point you'll start to maybe see those questions.
See, I think you're a little too early because I think the Kraken lose in regulation to Buffalo next game. And that's when it really kicks in. But I just feel that just feels like a game in which like Owen Power and Tage Thompson just like step up and they're just like, wow, we're like unbeatable when we're on.
Yeah, I think Buffalo, this is tough because I like for the narrative, because I see them losing. I'm looking ahead in the schedule. I see them losing that next game in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
All right, you know what? I do think the slump continues. Regulation loss against Buffalo.
Ooh, okay. See, I think this is where everything turns around on the 21st, going into Vegas. Kraken pick up their first win against the Golden Knights this season. All right, because that's the thing for the Kraken to do, right? Vegas has ruined your season up until this point. They've dominated all these games. They're all high and mighty and full of themselves, and they were still able to beat you on the 12th. This is the time. Philip Grubauer shows up to that game wearing a Batman costume or something, and the Kraken go out there and they dish out some justice for the Winter Classic and the way the rest of the season matchups have gone, and they stun a Vegas Golden Knights crowd in Vegas.
I love that narrative. I love that story. I want to believe it. I just can't. I think Vegas takes the season sweep. I'm going to go with another loss for the Kraken, and then at this point, it is really gut check time because you're looking at what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight losses in my scenario here, and then you're going on the road here for the very next day for a back-to-back in Arizona.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I mean, Jonathan Marchessault is going to be the only healthy guy for the Vegas Golden Knights in that game. So I don't know if that changes your opinion.
And whatever no-name goalie is in net at that point who
Yes.
will have 45 saves and win the game.
Nah, I think the Kraken get it done for that one. The very next night, they go to Arizona. Is this the trap game for Arizona, RJ? Arizona's had a season most of the season to gel, like you were saying earlier, and it's the night after a big game against the Golden Knights. Is this something that the Kraken should be worried about, this game on March 22nd in Arizona?
No, I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because, I mean, well, in your scenario too, they're coming off this big win against Vegas. They're going to be feeling good. I think you're going to feel we finally figured it out. For me, I think they're going to feel like season's on the line here. We absolutely need to win this game at this point. And I think they will. I think they're going to be a better team than Arizona, certainly at this point. And the Kraken are not going to be saved by a hero effort in Vegas. I think they're going to be saved by far and away the easiest stretch of their season, which is coming up here. And just some bad opponents, some plain old bad opponents. And Arizona is the first of them. And so I think they take the win here.
I think, yeah, and you know what? The bottom line is all the incredible Kraken fans in Arizona are going to help them out, right? Because regardless of what happens that previous day against Vegas, we've seen it. I've seen it live in person. It's incredible. Kraken can't lose in Arizona. I just don't see how it's possible in front of those fans. All right, so then coming home for a road break, RJ, otherwise known as a homestand, and the Kraken get to start that off against Montreal, and I think, you know what, that's a nice easy W for them.
Agreed. I think you build off the momentum you take from that Arizona game. You play against Montreal. I think also in that losing streak, we get, the Vegas, Washington, Nashville, Buffalo, Vegas. I think they're really going to struggle to score. I think that's how it's going to happen. And all of a sudden, the goals are going to start going in for them. I think you're going to see that offensive explosion a little bit in Arizona. You're going to get some bounces. Montreal, I see the same thing happening. I can see them putting up 5 or 6.
Poor Jake Allen. All right, then next 2 games, RJ, 26th and 28th against Anaheim, both games at Climate Pledge Arena. I think they're both going to be wins for the Kraken. I think one of them will be close, one of them will be a blowout, but I think they're both Kraken wins. I just think post-trade deadline, the Ducks are going to have really nothing left. Give me 2 W's.
I see the first one blow out, the second one close as the Ducks kind of regroup and get it together, maybe have some better goaltending. But yeah, I'm with you on this one. I think the win streak is rolling. This stretch of the schedule, I think, is going to play out really well for the Kraken right into the home stretch, right before the playoffs. And as I'm looking at this, I'm so pleased seeing these teams lined up on the schedule at this point, right in late March, early April, when it's time to build confidence.
Mm-hmm. And then to close out the month of March, you get Dallas at home, and I do think that's a regulation loss. I think Pete DeBoer pulls something out special for that one.
I think the Kraken ride the momentum and they take a close win. I think Ottinger has one of those off games like we've seen him have at Climate Pledge before. Okay. I think they sweep the homestand. And especially given the results from earlier in the season, we haven't split this by home and road record, but I think I picked a lot more, clutch wins on the road than at home. I think they start to reverse that narrative here and they keep the momentum going.
Okay. And then to kick off the final month of the regular season, RJ, April 2024, on the 1st, April Fool's Day, get to go into San Jose and get another win.
Yes, that's what happens. As long as you put in some basic effort, you should get that win in San Jose, certainly post-trade deadline. I think the Kraken will be on a roll at this point. 5 straight wins coming into it in my scenario. They make it a 6th in San Jose.
All right, and then into Crypto.com Arena again, RJ, to face the Kings. Again, like I said before, Kraken beat the Kings when they're playing in LA. It's just what happens. That's another dub for me.
Yep, agreed here. I'll go 7 wins in a row. The Kraken really catching fire. Those trade deadline acquisitions playing more of a role here, kind of gelling on the team. It'll take a little bit, but it'll finally come together here. And I just love seeing these California games on the schedule. It feels like easy money.
Yep. And then Anaheim on the 5th. I actually think this one, the Ducks show up for at home for them. And after dropping the 2 the previous week in Seattle, and I think the Ducks win this game.
I think the Ducks are going to be this season's version of what Arizona was last season, where you play them like 3 times in rapid succession and they're just so hapless. There's nothing that they can do about it. So give me another Kraken win here. I think just that's where the Ducks are going to be at this point. They might score some goals. They might make it fun or interesting, but I think the Kraken will have their number.
You don't think that the magic of Zegras, McTavish, Drysdale, maybe even Leo Carlson on that roster, they can't just magic one game out?
Vibes only. I feel like one of those guys, like Zegras or McTavish, will be injured and will not be playing at this point in the season.
Okay, all right, interesting. Speaking of Arizona, last game of the season against the Coyotes, RJ, at home on the 9th.
I think Anaheim is this season's Arizona. Arizona is not this season's Arizona.
Okay.
I think they're finally going to put it all together. Logan Cooley's going to have a big game. Nick Schmaltz is going to score the game winner. And the Coyotes are going to take this one.
That's a fun one right there. I think this is a win for the Kraken, but I have them dropping that game against the Ducks, so it evens out. And then last home game of the season, RJ, fan appreciation against the San Jose Sharks. We've had them winning every game against the Sharks this season, RJ. Why do I feel like this will be an L? Why?
I know. It's because we picked them to beat the Sharks like easily all the other games this season. It feels like we've just assumed that that's a win. And that at some point, look, I do think the Sharks are going to have 1 win against the Kraken this season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it's going to be.
I agree with that.
But I don't think it's going to be here. The Kraken, they get up for fan appreciation night.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. I mean, it's I think it's still going to be a win. I mean, look, I'm picking all wins against the Sharks this season. Okay. I think there'll be 1 loss, as I just
They're
said.
a bad team. Like there's nothing there's nothing wrong with picking a season sweep of the Sharks. Like the Sharks are going to be one of the worst teams in the league.
I just fan appreciation night too. I mean, they showed out for fan appreciation night year 1.
True.
Year 2 was against Vegas, so that's Vegas. Yeah. If any team has the opposite energy of the Vegas Golden Knights, it's the San Jose Sharks.
That is very true.
Give me the win there.
That is very true. All right, and then a road trip to finish the season, starting off in Dallas on April 13th. I think that the Kraken get the win over the Stars for this one.
All right, so we're going to basically flip these past 2 Stars games. I think they'll get the win over the Stars at home as part of that long win streak. Mm-hmm. I do think they drop this one, especially with it being a matinee game. I think it's just going to throw them off going onto the road for a game in the middle of the day. I think it's going to be a regulation loss.
See, I think that's going to happen the next day against St. Louis. Back-to-back kind of midday weekend games. I think they dropped that one to St. Louis in regulation.
I'm going to agree with you there. I think that weird stretch of just going on the road for back-to-back games, both of them midday games, you're off your time zone too, you're in Central Time. I think it's just going to throw them off. Yeah, give me losses on both ends of that.
All right, and then whatever shell of a Winnipeg team is left on the 16th, I don't think it'll be much, and I think the Kraken can get the win there.
I'm going to go overtime win here. I think Winnipeg will play the Kraken closer than you might think. I think it could be one of those higher scoring games where the defense isn't really where it needs to be for the Kraken, but they're going to be able to score their way out of some mistakes. I think Jared McCann game winner.
All right. And then final game of the regular season, April 18th in Minnesota. We've been kind of scared by this Minnesota team all season long, but I think this is where the Kraken figure it out. My guess is, Kraken, we'll all be looking towards the postseason. Maybe Minnesota, maybe the Kraken are a playoff bubble team and they need this game. But I think this is where the Kraken get it done for that final game of the season.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think they close it out on a win. At least for me, going into this game, for my record, the Kraken will have 94 points. I think at that point in the standings, they will definitely still have something important to play for, whether it's seeding or being kind of close to the bubble. I think it's going to be a meaningful game for them. Just vibes, hunch, I don't know. I don't think it'll be a meaningful game for Minnesota. I think you might see them resting some players, and the Kraken will take advantage.
All right. So that is the season, RJ. And my record has 81 games played. So.
Okay.
I'll just tack back on that win that I guess I took away earlier. I don't know. What should I do?
Yeah, maybe you did count it right. I don't know. Just tack on the win. I have 82 games, so I don't know what the issue is. I can count games in an 82 game season. I can't count over under team versus player based over unders. We all have our strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So then my final season result for the Kraken is 44, 31, and 7.
How did we end up this close, Dylan?
Because we spent a lot of time talking about this team.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm at 44, 30, and 8.
Okay, there we go. And for reference, everybody, last season the Kraken finished the season 46, 28, and 8. So, I mean, we both think they take a small, tiny little step back this year, RJ.
Yep, a 2-game step back.
Yes,
is what we're predicting here with 96 points versus last season's 100. I mean, how are you feeling about this, Dylan? Because I tried not to check the record too often while we were picking things. I tried to just kind of let the momentum of the season flow and just kind of see where it ended up leading me. But when you look at the final record, I mean, does that kind of sound right based on what you felt like you picked?
Yeah, I do. And I think that it's one of those things where, like, if you had just said, if we had asked each other this before we started, how do we think the Kraken will do? Where do we think they'll kind of finish? I think we both would have said they're going to be over 500, but I don't know that they're going to be like, easy top 2 in this tough division, like, 50-win team, right? Like, I don't think either of us would have really said that about this team, and so they kind of came out where we think they will. They're gonna be in a similar boat to last year just because of how tough the division is that they play in. It's gonna be hard to crack that top 3. It's gonna be really, really hard. But at the same time, this team is too good to not be a playoff team. And so I think they're gonna kind of hover around in that same spot where it's, can they get the 3rd seed in the Pacific, or are they gonna kind of be a safer wild card team?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you look at last season's standings and you put that 96 points over there for the Kraken. And I mean, they end up in the same spot. They're in the top wild card spot. Winnipeg had 95. And whenever you're kind of in that mid 90s number, that's pretty much where you're going to land, is that high wild card. Maybe you get one of the low division spots. I mean, Tampa was 3rd in the Atlantic last season with 98 points. So that's kind of more or less where you're looking to end up. And I think, we both agree that without getting too much into the division preview, but yeah, I think we both agree the Kraken, they are a good team. They're looking to take another step forward, but there are certain areas where they might regress, and it might just kind of even out.
Yeah, I really think that it will. I think, and this is pretty similar to how I picked it. I think the team's going to roughly do as well as they did last year. I think they'll start off a little slower. They got to figure out what lineup they're going to go with. I think that is something that's going to happen to them early on in the season. And I think this year's team is going to be a lot less streaky. I don't really have them going on real big, long win streaks or big, long losing streaks like they kind of did last year. I think this team's going to be a much more even keeled.
Yeah, and I think for my picks, it kind of follows that pattern as well. It's going to respond to basically, kind of what the matchups are, who the opponents are, and generally they're going to play their game, and every team's going to come into it knowing what to expect from the Kraken. There, as Jared McCann and other players said after this season, you're not going to get away with this stuff anymore where teams underestimate you.
Yeah.
They're going to know what you're capable of. And I think you're going to see that especially early on in the season where teams are going to be more motivated to play the Kraken, and it's going to be harder to string together these big winning streaks like they had last season where you can kind of catch teams off guard, and you're going to just kind of have to earn those wins piecemeal and grind it out in the season, because that's what this is. It's an 82 game grind. And I think if you can just hit the momentum at that right point, just be ready for the playoffs. And I think that's where the Kraken are pretty well situated to do. Dylan, question for you. When looking at this schedule, because again, we hadn't really done a deep dive on the schedule or anything, what stood out to you as far as the opponents, the timing, everything? Because there were certainly some surprises for me.
The big thing for me is that, once again, I think it's going to be a really good January and a really tough February. That was my big takeaway. Was I was like, okay, we're going to be like really cooking through January. That's where the team is going to really pile up wins. We're going to start getting going. And then I looked at February's schedule and I'm just like, wow, things are going to grind to a halt again post All-Star break. Like, why does this keep happening?
Yeah, I was feeling a lot of despair as we're going through that February stretch, and then even into early March. You've got some tough road trips, and playing Vegas twice through mid-March, but then I was so relieved when I saw that stretch at late March, early April, which is exactly when you want that stretch of winnable games. I think the Kraken had that last season too, where, I mean, we talked about it a lot, where they hadn't gotten wins against playoff teams. So like, yeah, they're beating the teams they should beat, but they're not beating playoff teams, but it's good for their confidence. Is that a good thing that you're able to just beat up on Arizona 3 times in a span of a couple of weeks? Like, is that really prepping you for the playoffs? Apparently it did.
It did, yeah.
Like, I think the results were good. So if you can get that sort of thing again, I don't see why you wouldn't want that.
Right. And here's the other thing that I took away is that there was not a lot of obvious times where it's like, oh yeah, this would be like, backup goalie territory. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's obviously all the back-to-back days, those are going to be splits between them. I'm going to be really, really interested to see how Dave Haxtell handles whatever the goaltending situation ends up looking like, because I think you and I are both in agreement. This goes for most goaltenders, but it sure seems to go for Philip Grubauer. If you can keep him, with fewer games played through the regular season to keep him fresh for the postseason, that's the way to go. But looking at the schedule, there's not a lot of stretches of time where you really start looking at it and you're just like, yeah, that seems like a good spot to throw, Joey a game or something like that. So it's going to be interesting.
And I do worry about that a little bit.
Me too.
Just that
might
Haxtell might not pull the trigger on that unless he has to.
Yes, and that might be, honestly, my biggest worry for the Seattle Kraken this upcoming season. And doing this exercise today kind of drove that home for me and brought me that clarity. But my biggest worry is that Philip Grubauer is going to start like 60 to 63 games and just not... He's going to be too tired for the postseason. And I don't know that Haxtell's the kind of guy to keep that in mind or to... lessen however many games he's had, especially if Philip Grubauer looks good, right? It's going to be really hard. We know this from Haxtell. If somebody's looking good, he's going to keep playing them until they're not looking good anymore. And I just don't know that that's the way to handle Philip Grubauer this year.
Right. Haxtell, he's a very thoughtful coach. He does think deeply about these things, and I know he considers this stuff, but also, yeah, like you said, his philosophy. If a guy's playing well, he doesn't like to mess with it. Yeah. And especially goalies, like, they don't always know what's good for themselves. Like, they'll always want to play all the time. Every goalie, if they're healthy, would tell you they want to play 82 games, and that's just not what's best for them. So I think that might be something that Hackstall might struggle to deal with, as any coach would.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I mean, again, maybe having 3 goalies helps you solve that problem a little bit more. If Drieger's playing well in the AHL or Decourt, whatever, whoever doesn't win the backup job, and you want to get him some reps, I mean, it can be almost an excuse to kind of make Grubauer sit the number of games that he really should sit.
Yeah, the problem is we have them in that kind of borderline territory, right? Where it's not going to be
every game's going to matter. And Hackstall, it's not in his DNA to lay off the gas when, you're still very much, in the thick of things. It's just not what he does.
It's going to be a really interesting one, but now is the time. RJ, we did not do a good job sticking to the 39.51 seconds or whatever we had to talk about each game.
How long did we go?
Over an hour and 20 minutes into this podcast. But now is the time where we can turn it around, and we want to hear from all of you. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube if that's where you're watching this. Tweet at us at Emerald City HKY. Hit us up on Instagram, and then of course on the Discord. That's really where a lot of these conversations end up taking place. But I'm very curious to hear what people think about what you and I did, kind of where we have the Kraken this upcoming season, kind of being in a similar spot to last year, or if people disagree. They think the Kraken are going to be, really rock solid in the division this year, or if they might even regress further. I'm really intrigued by that, and then definitely that goaltending question as well. I think that's going to be a big one. But that's going to do it for
And if there's any single games you have a certain feeling about too, let us know. Get those receipts down. Have them timestamped. Yes. Be ready, because I'm sure we will go through those as the season goes on. And hey, if you were right about something, if you're feeling, hey, February 12th at New Jersey, there's going to be a double hat trick from somebody. You're just feeling it right now. Let us know. And when it happens, make sure to let us know that you were right about it. So I'm interested to see, kind of what you're all thinking. If you have specific games that you're feeling something about.
Yes. Who will score the double hat trick on my sister's birthday? That'll be a fun one against the Devils. But yes, that is the time. And then you know what? You can just show up for that night's post-game live show and just be like the ruler of that room, like that whole night. Then you just know everybody's just gonna be like, whoa. So everybody definitely is gonna want to have that opportunity, so definitely let us know. Another last shout out to Queen Anne Beer Hall for sponsoring this podcast, as always. Incredible sponsors of us. And that's gonna do it for this week's podcast. We'll see you all next week for our way too early division preview for the Pacific Division. It's gonna be a good one. Till then though, everybody, we'll see you next time. Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons: Absurdly Sane, Alex, Andrew, Anonymous, Ben, Brad, Burnt Creme, Kaylin, Chris, Cody, Connor, Coop, Daryl, Denise, DJ Singletone, Duthin, Eli, Elizabeth, Evan, Habak, Gaby, Gary, Gregory, Harry Legionary, Jay, Jane, Jeremy, Jessica, Joni, Joseph, Josh, Joshua, Katie, Keegan, Kepler, Kitty B. Kraken,
Leanne, Light, Lonnie, Mark, Maya, Michael, Michelle, Noah, Nori, Nunya, Paige, Paul, Rayanne, Rebecca, Ryan, Sarah, Scott, C.A. Kraken, Sean B., Sean O., Sergey, Shannon, Shoeshine, Skeletal Tendency, Steve, Steven, Striatic, Hasty Kobold, Team YMIAT, Tank Commander Ty, Wendy, Strife, and Zane. Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.